Have you ever bought something just so others would think you're successful? A brand new car, the latest smartphone, or maybe a luxurious vacation just to post it on social media. We don't spend money because we truly need to. We spend because we're afraid of being judged. But here's the truth no one ever tells you. Living to prove yourself will drain you financially, emotionally, and spiritually. If you've ever felt exhausted from trying to keep up appearances, then this video is for you. We're not here to talk about living in poverty. We're talking about how smart people are choosing to live below their means in exchange for something far more valuable than money: freedom. And you'll want to stay until the end because this one shift in mindset might just change your entire life after 50. Part 1. Looking poor is really about living with intention. Many people assume that looking poor means living in deprivation, sacrificing comfort, quality, and joy. But the truth is far from that. In a world where consumerism and curated images dominate everything from television to social media, choosing to live below your financial means is no longer a weakness. It's a powerful and intelligent decision. Looking poor isn't about wearing torn clothes or rejecting all comfort. It's about not spending money on things you don't truly need just to earn a nod of approval from others. It's about driving an older car that still runs safely instead of replacing it every 3 years simply because everyone else does. It's about holding on to your phone a little longer, not because you can't afford the new model, but because the one you have still works just fine. Recent surveys show that a majority of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, even those with decent incomes. They spend based on habit, emotion, and social pressure. And yet they remain stuck in a cycle of financial stress. Not because they're poor, but because they're spending to prove something to the world. In truth, looking poor is simply about living with a clear purpose. It means knowing what's worth buying and what's not. It means prioritizing long-term freedom over fleeting satisfaction. Some people choose minimalism not because they lack the means, but because they value peace of mind. They've realized that designer clothes won't buy them health, and a brand new car won't guarantee a happy home. Think back. When was the last time you bought something just to avoid being judged? A pricey dinner at a restaurant just so you wouldn't feel embarrassed? A piece of tech you rushed to get because everyone else had it? These kinds of purchases, repeated over time, don't just empty your wallet. They chip away at your sense of self-control. On the other hand, those who live with intention tend to carry less debt, feel less pressure, and experience more freedom. They're not overworking just to sustain a lifestyle beyond their means. Instead, they spend time on what really matters, building meaningful relationships, caring for their health, pursuing personal growth, and living according to values that bring lasting happiness. As we grow older, it becomes clearer. Success isn't defined by what we own, but by whether we feel in control of our lives. And sometimes, achieving that kind of success requires the courage to be ordinary, not flashy, not showy, but grounded, peaceful, and spiritually fulfilled. If you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s and feeling weary from chasing a life that doesn't quite feel like your own, maybe it's time to give yourself permission to live differently. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to keep up. You only need to live within your values and spend the rest of your time enjoying a life that truly feels worth living. True wealth isn't in what you flaunt. It's in what you no longer need to prove. And that, more than anything, is freedom, financially, emotionally, and spiritually.
Part 2. Freeing your mind from the pressure to impress. We live in a society where a person's worth is often measured by the car they drive, the bag they carry, or the watch on their wrist. The pressure to look successful pushes many people to spend beyond their means just to maintain an image in front of coworkers, neighbors, friends, or even family. But as many come to realize in their middle years, true relief only comes when you stop trying to impress anyone at all. When you start living for yourself, not for validation, your mind begins to breathe easier. The anxious thoughts like, what will people think if I wear this old outfit again? Or, is this car fancy enough for my high school reunion? Slowly fade away. You begin doing things because you want to, not because anyone else expects it of you. One middle-aged woman once shared how she used to feel embarrassed about wearing the same dress to different events. But one day, she realized no one actually noticed. From that moment on, she only kept clothes that made her feel comfortable and joyful instead of trying to meet someone else's standard. The result? A smaller wardrobe, a simpler life, and a much lighter spirit. When you let go of the need to prove yourself, you also let go of the emotional weight that comes with it. Social gatherings become more enjoyable when you're no longer worried about appearances. Shopping becomes more mindful because you know exactly what you need, and more importantly, what you don't. Even your time becomes more valuable because you're no longer wasting it comparing yourself to others. The feeling of simply being yourself, unpolished, unperformed, and unapologetic, is a kind of freedom that so many in their 40s and 50s deeply crave but have yet to fully embrace. The good news is you don't have to wait. That shift can start today with one honest question before every purchase. Am I buying this because I truly need it, or because I'm afraid of what others might think if I don't? You might be surprised to find that much of what you own doesn't serve any real need. It just soothes your ego for a fleeting moment. And soon after, that hollow feeling returns, until you finally choose to break the cycle. I'll tell you another story next, about someone who gave up a few luxury items and gained a peaceful, meaningful life in return. But before that, take a moment to look at your own spending habits with honesty. Are they truly supporting your happiness, or just keeping you looking okay in someone else's eyes?
Part 3. Trade a little glamour for a lifetime of freedom. There's a quiet paradox unfolding in the lives of many middle-aged Americans. We work tirelessly to acquire the things society deems worth having, yet end up with little time or energy left to enjoy the very things we sacrificed so much to attain. In our 40s, 50s, or 60s, this stage of life should be about reaping the rewards of decades of hard work. But instead, many people remain trapped in the cycle of earn more to spend more. And what's most heartbreaking is that most of this spending doesn't come from genuine need, it comes from a desperate desire to prove something. A brand new truck, a bigger house than necessary, luxury vacations, the latest tech gadgets, they all help you look successful in the eyes of others. But behind that polished image often lies financial strain, the burden of monthly payments, and a slow but steady drain on your mental well-being. There are people working 2 jobs just to afford the car they drive on the weekends. They take night shifts, work Saturdays and Sundays, not because they want to, but because they have to. And the real cost isn't just money. It's missed time with children, rushed family dinners, restless nights, quiet health declines masked by busy schedules. Now imagine a different choice. What if you didn't buy that new car? What if you kept the one you already had? It still runs, it's still safe, and instead of dumping money into interest, depreciation, and insurance, you invested those funds into a simple index fund. With an average return of around 10% a year from the S&P 500, in 30 years, that savings could grow to over $140,000. And $140,000 isn't just a number on a statement. It could mean retiring 5 to 7 years earlier. It could mean working part-time instead of full-time, or simply having the financial cushion to take a year off, whether to focus on your health, care for a loved one, or simply live at a slower, more human pace. Here's the encouraging part. Many people have already made this shift. They're no longer chasing appearances. They've embraced a life that's simpler, more intentional, and deeply fulfilling. They've come to understand that the real value of life doesn't lie in what they own, but in the freedom to choose how they live. You don't need to work extra hours each week just to earn the admiration of strangers. You can drive an older, reliable car and use that saved time to take your grandkids to the park, walk hand in hand with your spouse, or simply take a well-earned afternoon nap, without worrying about the next loan payment. Living simply doesn't mean living poorly. It means you know what truly matters. Health, not the watch on your wrist. Happiness, not the velvet couch in your living room. Time, not the speed at which you accumulate wealth. You can trade a little glamour for a lifetime of peace. And sometimes that is the wisest decision you'll ever make. The next, a story of someone who once dreamed of a grand house, but chose instead to downsize and gain something money could never buy. A sense of calm that carried them peacefully through the rest of their life. But first, ask yourself this: what are you really living for? And is it worth sacrificing your health, your time, and your happiness to chase it?
Part 4. When ordinary people choose a different path. In a world where everything is measured by appearances, the car you drive, the house you live in, the phone you carry, choosing to live simply and humbly is often mistaken for a lack of ambition. But more and more everyday people, not millionaires, not financial experts, are quietly choosing a different way. They live with clarity, with purpose, and most importantly, with a sense of contentment that doesn't rely on proving anything to anyone. A retired woman in Florida shared that she lives in a small apartment completely debt-free. She works part-time, just 32 hours a week, yet still maintains her health insurance and saves consistently. She doesn't own anything flashy, but she hasn't had to sacrifice her well-being or stress over monthly bills. Her life isn't glamorous, but it's stable, peaceful, and truly free. A single mother in Vancouver, Canada, said she bought her first home at age 36. She still uses an 8-year-old phone and drives a 2004 vehicle. Far from being embarrassed, she feels proud, because those choices reflect control over her life. She's not caught in the need to show off. Instead, she's building a life that makes sense to her. A middle-aged man in California shared that he once bought a Tesla not to impress, but to reduce his carbon footprint. What surprised him wasn't the car itself, but the sudden attention it attracted. People started treating him differently, not because of who he was, but because of what he owned. Over time, he realized that the real source of happiness hadn't come from the car, but from the quiet simplicity and freedom he had before owning it. These stories aren't rare. Across the U.S. and around the world, countless people are stepping away from the race to look successful. They're choosing older cars that still run well, smaller homes that feel warm, second-hand items that are still full of value. They live with less so they can experience more. They're not chasing likes on social media or showing off wealth, but they do have something far more valuable: time to sit down with family at dinner, the health to take morning walks, and the peace of mind to sleep soundly at night. If you're feeling tired of trying to keep up appearances, know this: you're not alone. There is a growing community of people who are quietly choosing differently, not because they can't afford more, but because they've realized that peace is more valuable than praise. If you've ever felt pressure because you're not keeping up, if you've ever wondered whether a simpler life means you're falling behind, the answer is no. In fact, it might be the first sign that you're moving in the right direction, toward freedom, toward genuine happiness, and toward a life that doesn't need to be displayed to be meaningful. And that's the moment when you finally begin to live, not just exist.
Part 5. Wealth isn't something you have to prove. From a young age, we're taught a very specific image of success: a big house in a good neighborhood, a brand new car parked in the driveway, vacations in expensive resorts, and a bank account that never runs low. That's the standard society sets, and many people spend half their lives chasing that vision, believing that achieving it will mean they've finally made it. But when you reach middle age, after decades of hard work, countless sleepless nights worrying about finances, and the emotional ups and downs of real life, your perspective starts to shift. You begin to see things differently. You realize that true wealth isn't what you show the world. It's the quiet peace you feel inside yourself every single day. Wealth is when you no longer wake up anxious about the bills. It's when you don't have to work overtime just to afford things that no longer bring you joy. It's when you know in your bones that you are enough and you no longer need to prove yourself to anyone. Choosing a simpler life doesn't mean giving up on quality. On the contrary, it's a bold and powerful declaration. I prioritize what truly matters. You choose to spend your time taking care of your health instead of pouring money into luxury items. You choose family dinners at home rather than picking up extra shifts just to afford a cruise. You choose reading, learning new skills, or taking peaceful walks in the park over expensive experiences that fade quickly and impress no one who truly matters. Because wealth isn't just about how much money sits in your account. It's about how much control you have over your time. It's the ability to rest when you're tired, to slow down when you need to, and to do what you love without needing permission, without being in debt, and without craving approval. Many people think peace of mind is a luxury, something that comes only after you've acquired enough. But the truth is, inner peace is the clearest measure of true wealth, especially in midlife. Money can buy a lot, but it can't buy that quiet sense of ease when your head hits the pillow. It can pay for doctors, but it can't buy good health. It can fund trips, but it can't buy the depth of real connection with people you love. No one needs to know how much you earn. What truly matters is this: are you living in alignment with your values? Are you making time for the people you love? Are you taking care of your physical and emotional well-being? Are you living to grow, To learn, to love, or just to maintain a polished image? The answers to those questions define the true measure of wealth in your life. And if you're ready to let go of the need to impress, if you're ready to choose freedom, peace, and a life that honors your real needs, then congratulations. You're not just saving money, you're actively rebuilding your life in a way that's more sustainable, more meaningful, and more deeply fulfilling. This isn't a step backward, it's a step forward, toward happiness, toward health, toward authentic relationships, and toward a kind of wealth that doesn't need to be flaunted. A kind of wealth that isn't reflected in other people's eyes, but in that quiet, powerful feeling you get when you sit down, take a deep breath, and know you're finally living in alignment with who you really are. Have you ever felt the pressure to maintain an image just to be accepted? How many times have you bought something you didn't truly need just to avoid being judged? And have you ever let something go, a possession, a habit, an expectation, and suddenly felt lighter? If you've experienced any of that, share your story in the comments below, because even the smallest honest story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Someone stuck in the loop of consumerism, worn out by judgment, and longing for a quieter, more meaningful life. You're not alone in this journey, and your voice might be the one that gives someone else permission to choose differently. If this message struck a chord with you, hit like to help spread this truth to more people, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next videos where we learn to live simply, live honestly, and live free together.